Thank you, Lauren. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for taking time on this beautiful afternoon to sit in front of your computer and talk about Google Apps. So hopefully you're a dedicated technology person if you're doing that. This is going to be a general overview of some of the great apps that we have available for in the Google sort of app suite. If you're a beginning user, you're going to be great with this. If you're immediate, intermediate, or advanced user, I hope you'll still find some tips that you'll find useful. Now, let me explain what I'm showing this to you. This is actually a Google Doc that I prepared for this webinar. If you scan this QR code later, I could post that, or if you click or you write down this link, you will have access to this Google document forever. Also, when we send out the certificates for the webinar, we will also include the link of this document in that email. So this will be great. So you can actually always go back to this as a resource. I've posted a lot of material on this Google Doc that you can always use later. So if you don't have to really write everything down right now furiously, you can sort of sit back, relax, absorb, think about questions, and then we can kind of go from there. So the Ed Technologies program at Canisius College is sponsoring this particular webinar. We are a great master's program where you can get a master's in Ed Tech. You can also get New York State certification as an educational technologist. So hopefully this might spur you to think about that as a possible degree option, or maybe you know someone who might want to pursue that degree option. Please click here, more about the program. We put together this promotional video for the program. And certainly there's this link to all the graduate programs at the college, so just so that this is there for you as well. At the end of this webinar, I'm going to share with you an opportunity for a great summit that's going to be held at Clarence Middle School on Google Apps for Education. So this is a major Google summit in the Western New York area. So if you are local, hopefully you can join us at that summit as well, end of June into the beginning of July. So let's move into the actual content now for this particular webinar. This document will have all the access that you need to all the information about Google Drive and Google Apps and so forth. So these are actually all videos that I've made, so you can actually click on these particular videos and you can watch them at a later date. They go into much more detail on how to actually use these particular programs. So I'm going to try to give you an overall broad view of these programs, and then if you want more in-depth knowledge, you can click through all of these as we go through docs and slides and sheets and forms, and then the last is Google's new product this year, Google Classroom. Okay, so let's start right with Drive. Google Drive is originally a cloud storage, sort of like a Dropbox would be. But Drive has tremendous possibilities of actually creating content. I love Dropbox or Microsoft, was it OneDrive or their version of that. But what's great about Google Drive is you can create content. So let me actually go into my Google Drive right here. This is the web-based version of Google Drive. And let that load up. Maybe you've all seen this, never actually used it, but once you're actually in Google, it's very easy to get to your actual drive. So say you went to just to google.com and you have a Google account, right? You just kind of go to your main Google page, and you always have the waffle icon. Okay, I went to my calendar for some reason, but this waffle icon, all right, will actually show you some of your apps are already preloaded. So you can go right into Drive right from that waffle icon once you log into Google. Okay, so everyone has this. Now what's nice, if your school has a Google Apps for Education account, you actually now have unlimited storage capability within Drive. And so do your students if your school has a Google Apps for Education account. Any school can get one of them, but you have to make sure your IT person at your school knows about this. And if you are a Google school, this is a great tool to have. In addition to teaching at Canisius College, I also teach high school at Clarence. Here I am in my room right now after school, and this is the first year at Clarence we went to our Google accounts, and they've been absolutely awesome. So once you're in Drive, you have this new button. You can do a lot of things with it. Right from Drive, you can create Google Docs, Google Sheets, slides, and you can even add other apps to this, which we can talk about later. But also, you can actually store all your files here. If you want to put all your files here, whether it be Word documents, PDF documents, you can put anything you want in Drive. Now, from the web interface, it's just, you can kind of go into this, and you could basically upload a file right from the web interface. Or you can upload a whole folder. So if you want to go into your Windows folder structure or your Mac folders, you can upload a whole folder to Google Drive, and now you can have access to it anywhere, any place, from your phone, your tablet, PC, or Mac, which makes it absolutely a wonderful working tool. Now, I don't want to get too much into this, but when you first open up Google Drive on your PC or your Mac, it will also ask you if you want to actually install it locally on your machine, which means that it will look more like a Dropbox or even the actual Windows file management system. So if you went to I'm on a Windows machine, and if I went to like Start, I went to Computer, you would actually see now that I also have my drive on my computer. I open up Google Drive. These are all my folders. The same folders that you see here are now also here on my Google file structure on my Windows machine. And now I can go into any of these folders and I can open them up and I can look at all my files that I would see anywhere. So that's also really nice. This is really easy too if you want to like transfer files back and forth from your PC hard drive or a HSpace or a Dropbox account. You can easily transfer them over to your Google account if you actually have that open. So that's just another option there for you. Okay, so that's just kind of the basics of Google Drive. But Google Drive really is your launching spot, your starting spot for really using Google Apps. Okay, so if you go back to this sheet, I have a great video here on how to use Google Drive in much more detail. So let's talk about docs. Okay, now docs are fantastic, and docs are great for making your own Word documents. I say Word, but anything you need to word process. But what's really great about Google and the focus of this webinar is the great collaborative aspects of Google Drive and Google Docs. Okay, so let's just go back to our Google Drive. Okay, I'll just use this one right now, and I will say New. Okay, and I'll make a new Google Doc. All right. And all of a sudden, you're already in Google Docs, and now you can start word processing or making, whatever you need to actually do. To title a document, you just click on this, and you rename it. Okay, and it's simple. It has all the usual things that you might need for anything, for word processing, inserting images and links and so forth. And I go in more detail about that in those other videos. But what's really nice about Google Docs is the fact that you can now share this document with others so they can view it, or if they want to be collaborators on a document. Now, if you're used to using Word, you're used to emailing files, right? You're always attachments, right, in emails to share. Now, what's nice about Google Docs is you really don't email anything. You really don't send an attachment. If you want to send someone your document, you really just send them the link to your document. So if I click on the actual share button, the default for that, I gotta name it. I'll just name it Test for now. Okay. The default will be you can actually add people's names or email addresses right here. Now, it's really nice if you have a Google Apps for Education account, all the emails of all the students and all the faculty in that domain or in that account are already preloaded. So you just start typing people's names in, they'll already be there. Now, once you add an email address to this, you can set the options. Okay, can that person edit it? Can they only comment on it? Maybe they can make suggestions or make some word bubble comments on the document. Or can they view only? You don't want them to make any changes to it. So it's really nice. You have a lot of flexibility on what mode you want to put that document in. Now, what I use a lot is the Advanced feature. If I click on Advanced, now I can actually send the link of that document to somebody. That's the actual link. If I copy that link and I send it out, now that document can be shared. Now again, the default is private. Only I can access it because I'm the owner of that particular document. But again, I can change that. Now, you can change it to add specific people, or anyone with the link can view it. I use that one a lot, meaning that they don't need to give you their email address or anything. Just the link, they can open it. Or if you want to restrict it to your domain, whether it be your school's domain or so forth, you can do that, or make it public on the web. Okay, so that's really the way you do that. So if I just press save, now anybody could view that document. That's basically how I set the sharing for this document that you're going to be able to view. Anyone with the link can view this document. That's why you'll have access to it. So I hope that makes sense. All right. Now, what's really nice about this, though, is that you want to share documents with your students, okay? And you might want them to have the ability to work on documents, all right? Now, I'm going to go through that a little bit, but then I'm also going to talk about Google Classroom at the end, which really does this for you. There's great automation in Google Classroom, okay? So I'll get to that in a moment, all right? Now, let's go back to that document sheet, Okay, so if that makes sense for everybody. Now, here I am. I posted some examples of how I've used Google Docs with my students. So these are high school examples. I teach history, so I teach courses like AP US, AP World. I also teach a great course on American military history. So say I wanted to make a study guide for my AP World students. So here's an example of a study guide. Now, this would be off a textbook chapter, and I would want my students, right, to actually work on this and to fill in the answers to these questions, right? Now, I actually have my students work on these collaboratively. They might work in pairs or teams of 3, and they actually divide up the work, and they work on these questions as a group. Now, I have the directions here, how they should do that. Now, you're going to see here, I say one member should share the document and rename the document with both members' names and label the other document. Basically, I've taught my students how to share Google Docs. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you Google Classroom that makes it this easier. But once a student has this, they can share with other students and work on as collaborators, where they can kind of get access to that document, and they can all work on it at the exact same time. That is really the most awesome power of Google Docs, is the ability of them to work collaboratively. All right. Now, I'll go back to this. I'll give you some other examples. Let me give you this one, because this will be better for you. I love using graphic organizers. So I have my students do something called a Persia chart, where they have to go through the political, economic aspects of a region, and they also fill this out. These are just tables, and they fill out these tables, and they work on them. Now, these are the old directions I used to give my students. I would send out a document, and what I would do is I would make the document public, which means that no one can change it unless they make a copy of it and make it their own. Okay, so let me show you the sharing options for this. So the sharing options is that this is a public document. Okay, so this is really important, especially if your school doesn't have a Google account. All right. Now, what I would have my students do, this was last year, before Clarence had a Google Apps for Education account. I had all my students use their own personal email, their own personal Gmail, Google accounts to work together. It was a little cumbersome, but it worked. And the students got accustomed to going to File, and then they would basically make a copy of a document. They would make it their own. The default is copy of this, but they would put another name on it. And now once they made a copy of it, they owned it. So now once they owned it, they can edit it. Because if you make the document public, no one can edit it, except for you, the owner. So I made a copy of the document, so now that they can go in and they can edit it, but more importantly, they can share that document out with anybody they want to in their work group. Okay, so they can work on it collaboratively. Now, that was cumbersome, and that's why Google started making Google Classroom, which I'll talk about at the end, which really streamlines this process for you. But the only problem with Google Classroom is your school needs to have a Google Apps for Education account. If they don't have that, you cannot use Google Classroom, unfortunately. Okay, so these are all free tools, but your school has to have that official account with Google. Okay, so that's an example of a collaborative graphic organizer that students can work on together. Okay, now let me show you another one of just if you want to make a direction sheet for your students. Say you just want to make a sheet that you want them to use and have for a project. I do a lot of debates. So my students would get access to this document. I might post it on my website, or now I post it on Google Classroom, or maybe you use Schoology or Emoto, whatever you use. And now this would be a great document for basically showing students how to work on something. So they're doing a debate. I go through all the directions. But what's so nice about this is I can embed all these links, right? And they can go to these links and they can watch videos that I've embedded on this. So I made a video how to actually go through the debate, how to find the primary sources, and I tell them where to upload all their materials to. And it's a really nice, easy way. Now you'd say, well, why can't I just do this as a Word document or as a PDF file? You certainly can. But what I like about Google Docs is that whenever I edit something, the document's always live. You ever had that problem where you don't know which version you're working on of a Word document? Is this really the latest version of a Word document? And then maybe you email it to yourself home and you work on your home machine and back and forth. Well, with Google Docs, whenever you open your document, you're always working on a live document. So if I make a change for this document for next year's class, great, the link stays the same. And my changes are reflected and the students open that document. It's always new, it's always fresh, it's always current. So that's what I really like about that. Okay, so that's sort of a basic overview of Google Docs. Okay, so that's kind of the Word version of Google. I don't know if you noticed this, but when you're in Drive, Google, right, not by coincidence, they made their, Docs blue, like Word is always blue, their sheets green like Excel is always green, and their slides that yellowish orange like PowerPoint is. So it sort of matches up with the Windows Office suite. So that's how it actually works. Okay, now getting to know slides. This link is a great screencast, a video that I made on how to actually use slides. Okay, slides is the PowerPoint version of this, so this is much more detailed. This is also a link to the Google Apps homepage where they also give you directions. These are great resources to go back to later. All right, now let me show you from Drive. Say you wanted to make a slide presentation. So same thing, just go New, and you go Google Slides. Boom, so now you got this new slide presentation. Again, it's a scaled down, trimmed back version of PowerPoint. Unless you're really a heavy PowerPoint user, most of us do not use all those features anyway. And you have some choices of themes that you can use. You can also import a theme. I'm going to show you another place to get some awesome themes. You could decide if you want like widescreen or full screen or standard. Okay, and I'll just pick up whatever, pick the wave theme. All right, so let's just open it up. And now it's the same thing as a Google Doc, which is so nice. Everything's the same. If you want to rename this, click right here. This has all the same kind of functions that PowerPoint has. If you want to make a copy of it, if you want to do that, you can always do this right through here. You can make your own folders in Drive and move it to a folder. You could do editing and you could view it and all the things that you can do. Add images and videos and art, the format of the slides. And if you want to make a brand new slide, just add a new slide. Which is really, and then you could kind of choose which kind of slide you want. Do you want that kind of slide, or let's say it looks a lot like PowerPoint? So it all works the same way. You can have the layout, and you have all your options for links and for fonts and so forth. So you have so many different things that you can do. All right, which is really nice. Okay, so that works out great. So students can you can make your own presentations here if you want to start using this instead of PowerPoint. But really, I have this mostly for student use. I like having my students make presentations. But what's really nice about Google Slides, it works the same way as Google Docs, meaning that students can share this with each other and they can work on this in real time. And what I mean by that, I wish I had students here to actually show you this, but when they're actually working on this, the other students see each other's names in the cursor, and you actually see it live in real time, which is really super useful. Okay, there's actually a video on this, which I won't open up right now, but if you watch the supplemental video, I recorded students working on a Google Doc live in class. So you'll see all the students and how they're working on it in real time, and that's super useful. Okay, you can actually check which students worked on which part of a document if you want to have that as a formative assessment or have some accountability. And these videos go into those particular aspects. So that's super useful. I've had students who've been sick at home log in to a document during class time, and they were working on their group project during class from home. Or a student might text them real quick from the class, say, hey, can you log on? And they're working on it together. So students are in class working on their projects, and their fellow members at home working on it as well. And that's all in real time, which is super useful for group collaboration. Now, let me show you some things that I've done with Google Slides. I like to do a template for my students to kind of guide them through what I expect in a presentation. So I might make this as a template. Okay, they're going to do a presentation, this is from my AP World class, on those Persia elements again. And look, I have those same directions again. One member should share the document and rename the document with both members' names. And then I'll explain why I have this relabeling thing here in a moment. So now they can go in, and once they've shared it out, they can go in and they can start editing this, put their names on it. They can add any theme they want to it. But then I have like directions. Here's where I want, the certain Persia element. Here's where I want to talk about continuities. Here's where I want to talk about changes of a society, and here's where I want the analysis. But I tell them they can add slides for visuals, and they can expand upon this. But this is a nice roadmap for them to follow as they do their presentation. Okay, so that's one way you can kind of use this as a way to guide students through a particular project. Let me show you a student example. Okay, so here's a student example of a project. They picked one of the basic themes, and they added their names to it. And here's all their slides, and they have all their analysis and their bullets and things like that, and their visuals. But what I can do now is I can actually go in, and this would be a really neat feature of Google Classroom. I can go into any student's document at any time I want and see what they're working on. You have access to all of your students' documents as it's being created. You do not have to wait until a student turns something in for you to actually give comments and give a formative assessment of it. So basically, as they gave their presentation, I was watching this, and then what I did was I added a comment to the document. So on any Google document, if you're a commenter, you can always add comments. So like if this was you can open up the comment thread in this document. There actually is none, but you can highlight anything you wanted to, and you can make a comment about it. See this little comment, insert comment, and then you could comment something. So I comment on my own document, but basically if this was a student's document, you can comment on it, and they would see those comments. You can make changes and suggestions, and they would see those changes or those suggestions. So for this particular project, this was my comment, which was a link to a rubric that I made in Google Docs that went through their score and my comments about what I thought went well about their presentation. Now they have access to this, and they can go into, anybody can go back into their presentation and see my rubric linked right there. So I used a Google form to make a rubric, then I put the link to that rubric back on the Google Doc. So see how you can use these tools interchangeably, which is super convenient. Okay, so that's an example of that. Now there's this new site that just came out probably about 5-6 months ago called Slides Carnival, and the link's on the document that I shared with you, where they've created all these really super nice, elegant designs for Google Slides. So if you're a person who likes all the different PowerPoint templates, they have so many really cool, hundreds of ones, and you can go like formal templates, and they have all these different design templates that you can then use in your Google Slides. Or you want inspirational. So if you're a person who really likes templates, it's okay. Google has those for you, and Slide Carnival made them, and they're all free. So that's really kind of nice too. All right. Let me close up some of my tabs here. My students call me a tabaholic because I always have 100 tabs open at one time. So let me just get out of here. So let's get back to this document then, and we'll save questions for the very end. So that's kind of the basics of what Google Slides can do, and how you can also use it as a collaborative work with your students. Now, forms and spreadsheets, we'll talk about that briefly. I'm not a really big spreadsheet person, but forms I use a lot. Okay, so this is a great example. These are links to how you use these. This is also a video you could watch later about how to use them more in-depthly. Now, if you go back to your Google Drive, you can create new, and you can create a new sheet. All right, and it's basically a scaled down version of Excel, and you can do all of these amazing things that you can do with formulas and things that I'm not very good at, but you can do all that here as well. And what's nice about this again is that you can share it with colleagues, you can share it with students as a collaborative project. So all of those things will be super useful to you as you go through all of this. Okay, so that's something that you can use in as a spreadsheet option over Excel. But I do use forms a lot. And if you go into your new button again, and you go to more, and you have Google Forms, all right, now you can create a really great survey form. You can give a title to your form. You can add items to your form. You can add scales and headers and grids and multiple checkboxes. And if you want to use this for a student survey, or teach students how to use this for surveys for a student project, or you can use this for quizzing. I'll show you some options for that in a moment. You can create quizzes right through Google Forms and have all your results forwarded back to a spreadsheet. So what's nice about Google Forms, anytime you make a form, a corresponding spreadsheet is also made with it at the exact same time. So any data that goes into this form automatically goes back to that spreadsheet, and then you can manipulate those numbers and that data as you wish. So that's really convenient for collecting data on students, or if it was a quiz, all their answers and so forth. You can do all that through Google Forms, which again is a great option. Let me give you an example of a rubric that I've made in Google Forms. So I made this rubric on Google Forms to analyze their presentations, right? I already think I showed you that blank form in a moment. Now, let me want to go into editing the form, but for some reason that's not giving me the option here. Maybe it's at the bottom. Nope, it's not seeing me as the editor, so I can't edit it. But I made this form the same way I made it right through here. I put all my questions in, and I made a grid for good, excellent, and so forth. Okay, and now I could do one of two things. I could just fill out the information here, okay, and then I could, go through all the scores and so forth, and press submit. And once I press submit, it would go back to the corresponding spreadsheet, okay, which is really super nice. But what I like though as well is when you have a form completed, you can also do this. This is kind of an advanced feature that I like to use. If I go to responses and I go to click pre-filled URL, now it's not going to show you anything because I didn't really make much of this, right? If I just click on this and then I press submit, it gives me a link. Now that link, when you open it, shows you the completed form in its entirety. That's why I use it for rubrics. This is how I used it when I pasted that rubric onto that slide presentation. So I made my rubric, and I always go to that responses, get pre-filled URL, and now I can fill it out, and then once I press submit, I get a link. It doesn't go to a spreadsheet, it just goes to the link, and now I can put that link on the student's Google Doc or their slide or whatever you want to actually do with it. So that's one rubric option that you might want to think about if using Google Forms as a rubric generator, which I think is a kind of a neat little twist on using Google Forms. Okay. Now a couple little end things before I talk about Google Classroom. Then I'm going to talk about add-ons and some other aspects here. I don't know if your particular situation where you might use the website Turnitin.com. I don't know if you really know what Turnitin is, but Turnitin is a site that originally was created just to check for plagiarism. But over the years, Turnitin has now become a site where you can actually comment, highlight, mark up student work. Any kind of work. It doesn't have to be an English paper. It could be social studies, science projects, labs, visuals for an art project. Anything you want to do, the students can upload multiple file formats, and then you could then grade it and turn it in. Now, what's nice about Turnitin now is that Turnitin now totally integrates with Google Drive. So students can create something in Google Drive, and then when they submit a paper or a project to turn it in, they can upload it right from Google Drive to turn it in. I use it all the time now as a collection, a way to collect work digitally. So my students create all their work in Google Drive, but then they end up correcting all that work in Turnitin. Paperless, easy to get at. So that's one thing you might want to look into. Turnitin, I don't know what the pricing structure is. I think they do individual quotes depending on where you actually teach. But if you don't have Turnitin, it's a great tool to think about to check student work. And also, it's a great tool certainly to check against plagiarism, the copy and paste method that sometimes students use to create, written assignments. So think about that. Now, I want to talk about the Google Chrome store. I want to talk about add-ons. Okay, so these are the basic tools, and these are the basic apps that you have in your Google Drive. Okay, now I have this thing called WeVideo and Lucidchart. And if I go to my personal Google Drive, I have a school account, and I have a Clarence account, and I have a personal account. And if I go to my personal account, I have more apps here as well that I have connected, so I can use a lot of different things when I make something. So how do you get those, and what is all this stuff? All right. So if you go to the Chrome Web Store, I have a shortcut to it, and I put the link on that particular page. But this is, if I'm using Chrome web browser, this is my Chrome app launcher. If I go to the web store, you can download countless education apps that are usually integrated into Turnitin. Okay, so you have countless things you can do here. If you're a Chromebook school, we use Chromebooks here. You can put all these apps on your Chromebooks, and students can put apps on their Chromebooks. There's a lot of games, obviously. But if I go to like education or anything like that, categories. I'll go to like education, and these are some great apps you can download for any imaginable subject you can think of, and a lot of them are integrated right with their Google Drive, so they could save their work in Drive, they could upload their work from Drive, and all these different apps you can kind of go through, and you can pick out which ones were more relevant to your situation. But these are awesome tools. Now, I want to say less than a year ago, probably about 6 to 8 months ago, Google started adding something called add-ons to all of their different Google Drive applications. So I go back to like Docs. I'll go to my test doc. This is here now. It never used to be here. And if I click on add-ons, I've added all these different little mini apps into my Google Docs app. Basically, you can customize your Google Doc app to anything you want it to be. You can add all these other programs that work in sync with the Google Doc. So if I go get add-ons, you're going to see this. This is absolutely amazing. You can add all these things to Google Docs. how you can make a bibliography right in Google Docs, table of contents, thesaurus, Lucid Chart. I love Lucid Chart. If you like making graphic organizers or diagrams in class, this is a free tool. I won't go into it now, but they offer free education accounts. They give you full capability if you're a teacher. And I make all these really cool like graphic organizers, and my students make graphic organizers, and they share with me, and it's all Google Drive integrated, which is really awesome. Translate and so forth, and math for like creating equations and on your Google Doc, and all this is here. And when you click on them, it becomes part of your Google Doc, and you can always use these extra tools. So the criticism used to be that Google Docs was too simple. That's why Word's so much better. Word has all these great tools. Well, no, you can also add great tools to Google Docs, and it's kind of nice. You can kind of customize what tools you want to add to your own Google Doc, which is really kind of neat. So just kind of keep that in mind. They all have it. If I go back to, excuse me, I don't mean they all have it. We don't have to see. There's no add-ons yet for slides. But if I go to spreadsheets, there's great add-ons for forms. So this is a form add-on. I go to add-ons here. This is really kind of neat for quizzing, choice eliminator, which is really kind of fun. This is for quizzing, which is really neat. It also creates a PDF form out of a form. So you got a lot of really cool things here for add-ons for forms. And am I in a spreadsheet? Let me get out of this for a second, and let me just click on and make a new spreadsheet really quickly. So make a new sheet, and the same thing. There's add-ons for sheets. So if I click on add-ons for sheets, it'll load up really quickly, and here we go. Now, tons of great tools for teachers on spreadsheets, add-ons. So there's so many that we can't even go through them all. But there's really making folders for your classes. If you don't have Google Drive, I would check out if you don't have Google Classroom at your school, if you do not have a Google Apps for Education account, check out G-Class folders. You can kind of do it on your own through their students' personal sort of Gmail accounts. Anything by these people at New Visions for Public Schools, Doctopus is really great. You could push out documents to your students and grade them all through Google Docs. This is more advanced stuff. Google Classroom has tried to make this easier for people, but again, the major problem is if you don't have a Google Apps for Education account, you cannot use Google Classroom. So there's other things you can do that mimic the applications or the possibilities. Correcting with Google Docs, really neat. Okay, so there's so many things here to check out that you can create a really nice, setup for yourself. If you like QR codes, you can generate them right here. So there's so many things to actually go through. All right, so I hope I'm not overwhelming you in this brief little webinar. Now, let's talk about Google Classroom, because I'm really excited about this particular tool. A lot of people are. And there's some great articles here on how to use Google Classroom. I've also posted a lot of resources here. These are great links to great places, so you can use those to do a little more research for yourself. But let me open up Google Classroom. This is what it looks like, and it's super customizable. And let me just go back to the home. These are all my classes that I have. So I have 5 different classes that I teach, two different preps, and you can easily join a class. You can share a code out to people, or you can create a class. And once you create a class, it's really not that hard to do. I'll just do like a little test class, okay? And now it's going to kind of guide you through it really quickly and easily. And it's going to ask you, welcome to your first class. It's going to show, here's the code. There's this great tour. You can add students pretty easily if they're all in the same domain. You can just kind of go through it. I think I got to actually take the tour, which I don't want to do. But you can add students and do all these things to it. Let me go back to my own feed and go back to this. You can actually even customize the way this looks. You can actually change. Let me get back to the main page here. I'm not doing too many things here. It's going kind of slowly. Okay, here we go. So you can upload a theme or select a particular theme, meaning like what color choice you want, what you want it to actually look like. So they have all these like stock photos and gallery photos you can actually pick from, or patterns, which is kind of neat. They did a brand new thing. This was just added about 2 weeks ago. You can upload your own photo here, or like a school logo or something, so you can really make it look really kind of nice. But let me go back to some of my classes here. And whatever, it doesn't really matter. And basically what's created is a large stream. of all the work that you're assigning to students over the course of the whole entire year. You could actually you could actually add an assignment, or you can just have an announcement. Okay, maybe you just want an announcement to your class about what's coming up, and you can then attach either a Google Drive document. You could attach a file from any other place like Dropbox or from your computer's hard drive. You could add a YouTube video, or you could add a link, and then you could just post an announcement. So really a lot of usage, and then you can decide which classes you want the announcement to actually go to, and then you can post it, which is really kind of nice. And if you want students can reply to those posts. I turned that off because I don't really use this as a social media for students. I use other things like Edmodo, and we're going to be using Schoology next year. But you can have students make comments and reply to the announcement, and you can have a discussion right here. And if you go through the whole entire year, this goes all the way back, and it keeps on loading more and more all the way back to September of all the things that we've used Google Classroom for. So you can kind of see that I've used this a lot, okay? And we use this every day or every other day in our classes here. Now, let's make a test assignment. This is what I want to show you about the nice sharing capabilities. Okay, so I'll just call this test, and then my students, if no one's logging on right now, they're going to freak out thinking we have a test coming up. Whatever, we'll just call this, we'll just put in test here. And you can decide when this is going to be due. You can add a time, and then I'll grab something from my Google Drive. So say I wanted to share out one of those study guides, right? So I'll go to AP World History, and I'll get the latest study guide here. So Chapter 40 study guide, the last one they got to do. I'm going to add it to the assignment. Now this is really cool. Remember how I was showing you before how you had to change all those sharing settings? Well, with Google Classroom, you don't do anything. Upload your file, and then right here you can decide. Can the students view the file, which means they can only see it, they can't do anything with it. They can edit the file, but this means that the whole class can edit that one file and work on that whole one file collaboratively. Or I use this all the time. It automatically makes a copy for each student. And then I press assign. Now, this is really neat. So let me show you this. So I'll go back into my Google Drive. When you make Classroom part of your Google Drive, it automatically puts a folder in your Google Drive called Classroom. I didn't put that there. And so open up Classroom, and then all of a sudden it will make a folder for every single class you've ever created. Now look I just made this folder called test. That's my class I just made for you, right? A folder is already created in there called test. I didn't do that. Automatically done it. So that's kind of cool. I open up period 3 for AP World. Anytime I've made an assignment, it's created a folder for each assignment for the whole entire year. And now if that was a study guide, like study guide 40, I can go into that, and now I can see every student's copy of that particular assignment. This one is just being worked on. So let's look at something a little bit different. You know, they were just doing this the other day. There. So this Yeats is a poem. Every student now I can go into, and I can now go into and I can open up any of their work, and I can see what they're working on. If this was being worked on right now in class, if I open up the student's work, I can actually see what the student's typing in real time. I can actually make comments on their document as they're typing. So this gives you great accessibility to all your students' work. This is super powerful, and it's a great tool to use. So I think it's really kind of a neat thing. I'm super excited about that. So that's kind of like the basics of what Google Classroom can do. Now students can turn in work through Google Classroom, and then you can comment on it and grade it. But I'll tell you the truth, I haven't used it yet, and here's the reason why. There's no real rubric capability with Google Classroom yet. That's been one of the biggest complaints. And I really can't mark up their documents as much as I want to mark them up. So I use Google Classroom to push work out, but then I still use Turnitin so they can then submit their work through Turnitin, and now I can grade it much more creatively and add so many more comments and suggestions and things and attach rubrics. So that's why I use both interchangeably. But that's really kind of the really neat thing about Google Classroom, which is really kind of fun. So I hope that's something that you might want to think about. So you can push all these things out to your students. Okay, so going back to the Google document here, these are all resources on Google Classroom and other things about Google Apps. And at the very end here, Canisius College, in conjunction with Clarence Central School District, is actually helping to sponsor the first Google Summit in Western New York. So this is really excited about this. This is a big deal. Google works with this company, the ed tech team, and they're bringing in keynote speakers from all around the world and trainers from all around the world. It's a 3-day summit. You can even get Google certification as part of this summit. And it's a wonderful, awesome experience. So I hope you might think about this. Click on this link, and maybe you want to join us at this particular summit. So kind of further this conversation. And again, maybe you also think about our programs here at Canisius. So hope I didn't go on too much. I know I threw a lot at you, and I would love to answer any questions if you have any. So thank you very much.
First one we have is, if you have existing Word or PowerPoint documents, can you import them into Google Docs?
Yes, you can. It's really, I don't know if I can show that quickly here, but you can actually open up Word documents in Google Drive. So that's really kind of nice. So I don't do a lot of that, but you actually can. So if you go to like a file upload, basically you can then go file upload, grab that Word document wherever it's saved. Do I have any ones that are just kind of laying around here quickly? I must have something in my this is all different stuff, but yes you can. And you can also convert any PowerPoint to a Google slide presentation too. So that's again super useful. So I can just open it up right here. That was a Word document. It's going to upload it. It's going to take some time to actually do that. And then it's going to have it ready to go. Here it is already. If I click on that, it's going to open it up. And oh, it was a PDF. I apologize. So now it's going to open up a different tab. But this will actually open up a Google Doc for you as well, or a Word document. So yes, you can. That's a simple answer.
Okay. Next question: do the Google Docs work on most devices? Say iPads or Kindles or whatever may be in use for the classroom?
Yeah, I really didn't want to go too far into that. And is this working right now, my Air server? I think it is. The way Google Docs looks on an iPad or a tablet or your phone, they try to streamline it so it looks pretty much the same way no matter where you are, which is really kind of nice. So let me just see if I can mirror this, and let me go mirroring on, and if Air server comes up, that'd be really nice. Trying to show you my iPad right now, and it should work, but sometimes it doesn't if I don't have it hooked up already. But it looks exactly the same as the Google Drive setup that you see here. Here we go. So everybody can see that. This is my iPad. So if I go to Sheets or Slides, I don't have them all in the same spot because I don't use them all interchangeably. But I just open up Docs, and this is Google Docs on my iPad, and look, it looks the exact same way. You can switch your accounts. Right now, it's my personal account. You can have a folder view or open up your drive right through this. You can have sort of a a view of thumbnails. And so I was just showing you that document, right, about about Byzantine Empire, and there it is on my iPad. I can edit here. I can make comments here. I can add people as sharing people here. So everything that I showed you, you could do on your iPad or your Android device or your iPhone. It all looks the same. So that's really a nice feature of Google Docs, or Drive, or Slides, or Sheets as well.
Final question. Do your students have a preference for which Google tool they want to use or like using?
It's really up to them in a sense. My students love Google Docs because I've already started beginning of the year. We started using them. I taught them how to use these, and I know now they're using Google Docs in all their other classes, even when they're not required to. They like using Google Slides over PowerPoint just because they become so accustomed to it. So I think it's just a matter of their comfortability. As long as you sort of train them and teach them how to use these tools, they really like them. Part of the reason also because we have Chromebooks. Now, not every student has a Chromebook, but we have Chromebook carts and things like that. So if you have a Chromebook, Google Docs is the absolute way to go. I'm sorry, I'm hearing a little bit of feedback. I hope everybody's okay. Can't hear me. I'm hearing a testing. Everybody hearing that or not? Oh, you know what? That's at my school. I apologize. They're testing the PA system. So I apologize. But anyway, so yes, they really like using either docs or slides or sheets to do their work. I really never ask them to use Office products ever, and they really never do. So I think it's just a matter of what they're really getting used to.
Okay, well that was like all the questions, so thank you so much, Ron. Should you have any questions following the webinar, you can always send us an email at brad@canisius.edu. You'll also be receiving certificates of completion for today's event, which will be sent to your email. Our final webinar in the series will be at the same time next Thursday. I'll include the link to register for that and a link to the recording from the first webinar as well. So be sure to check your email. And thank you again for attending.
Thank you. Goodbye.